Hey, everybody, and welcome to this special emergency episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. It's your friend Rook from Blind, and today I want to talk to Jack and you all about this crazy blind poll that you might have seen go viral on social media. A user asked Nvidia professionals, what does your net worth look like with this kind of AI hype? Nvidia shares have obviously been on trading at such a tear. And so this one question poll, hey, Nvidia employees, what's your net worth? And a majority, 60-70%, they are claiming to be millionaires based on the compensation that they're earning, the stock grants. Um, you know, 14% say they earn between 1 and 3. Their net worth is now between 1 million and $3 million. We have 76% that say they are millionaires in terms of net worth. And in terms of how many folks are earning 10 million or more or have a net worth of $10 million or more, that is about 44% of all Nvidia professionals, according to the verified Nvidia employees that participated in this blind poll. What do you think, Jack?
I,
All
I,
these
I
millionaires at work.
well, I thought also it was 20 million. Wasn't there a data point for that as well, or no?
Yes,
Yeah.
37% of Nvidia professionals on Blind say they have a net worth now of $20 million or more.
And when they say the net, is that the net worth just from Nvidia, or does that include, of other
It's
holdings?
their net worth period.
Yeah.
So we're going to assume a lot of that is
It's
coming from their Nvidia stock.
this is what's amazing about the tech sector. You could just make a fortune if you're at the right company at the right time. Boom, $20 million. I mean, that's just so awesome. I mean, you don't get that working, as a teacher. You don't get that, as a regular person. It doesn't happen. I mean, this is amazing. America is a great place for a lot of for a lot of reasons. That's why a lot of people come here, right? I, you know, not everyone can be very rich, but damn, sometimes this is crazy.
I mean, Jack, do you want, will you indulge me? Can we get
Mhm.
a little nerdy? Can I break down
Yeah,
the
let's do
numbers
it.
for everyone?
Yes.
So, Nvidia, when you join, just like many other tech companies, you have your cash, your base salary, but you also have this stock-based compensation. And at Nvidia, they get grants of 4 years. So in your offer letter, you'll have a hard dollar amount, let's say, $500,000. And at Nvidia, it's over 4 years. And so each year you're getting 500 divided by four, you're getting $125,000 worth of stock. And what ended up happening is if you joined Nvidia 2020, the stock price for most people that joined that year, the average is about $13 per share. And so you think about $13 versus what it's trading at now, over $100, you're seeing, an 8x, 9x increase of your stock grant just by sitting at the company doing your work. In 2021, the average stock price grant for these new hires was $29. In 2022, it's $15. And then last year, 2023, the average stock grant was $50. So even if you joined last year and you got stock at a price of $50, now that it's at 100 plus, you're still sitting on a over 100% gain in that kind of stock-based compensation portion. So let's say you got $500,000 in your offer letter. Well, now it's $1 million over 4 years. And so in that 1 year alone, that first year total compensation has increased by so much.
My head is exploding hearing this. This is crazy. It's so nuts. It's so wild that that could happen. Now, what I'm really curious about, what I'm really interested is this. From an outside perspective, now you're going to have a certain cohort that has, $20 million net worth. Let's not even put aside the 20 million net worth, because let's say you're a person of a certain age and you've been in the tech sector for a long period of time and you're making, 500, let's just say 500,000 a year plus stock, what have you. So you already have a lot of money. Now on top of that, you have Nvidia money on top of that, because presumably, these people in tech are smart, so they're probably diversified and have other things going on too. So they're probably well off to begin with. Now they're super well off. How does this work in the context of the company, where now you have this group of people who are multimillionaires, and where is the drive for them to keep going, as opposed to putting their feet up on the desk and say, hey, I'm peacing out. I'm done. Look at this. Why am I going to kill myself? I have $20 million. I have $30 million. If nothing else, let me just, cruise for a little bit, take some time off. And then I wonder, Rick, how is it for the other people who maybe didn't get any stock or got very little stock? And now you're sitting next to someone who's a multimillionaire. That dynamic has to be just so crazy, because we're humans. The jealousy factor, the frustration,
Oh, of
like
course.
they're like, I should have, could have, would have, but I didn't buy that stock. How can everyone get along together? Seriously, think about it. Like, how can you not be a little envious of, somebody who just hit it so big and you didn't, and you got to live with them every day? Like, what do you think about? Am I the only one who thinks about these things? Because this sounds
No.
it's okay. So this is a somewhat common thing, not like to this degree, but just this is what goes on.
I mean, it's a common thing
Yeah.
even when the stakes and the increase haven't been this large, right?
Mhm.
Where you look on Blind and you see folks that are jealous of people that joined Meta at 2019 or 2020, right before the metaverse change and
Mhm.
all of that. Where, I don't think people realize this, but back a few years ago, Meta shares were languishing, right? They really were not doing really well. And obviously, now you look at the turnaround. And so, can you imagine if you had joined a year before that kind of share price drop? You're thinking, oh gosh, my stock price is at such a high level. During that 1 year, you're kind of sweating bullets a little bit in terms of, everyone's kind of making fun of you. The morale at the company must have been so poor. And now you're just hoping and praying that the share price goes back up. In Meta's case, it largely has, but can you imagine if you're at another company where that isn't the case? Surely you're going to be upset now at work. So I think when you have this kind of situation, whether it's up or down, it really has to do with the company culture in terms of how you're going to motivate everyone, how to kind of get through actual work that needs to get done, right? Because obviously, Nvidia, they want to still ship out all of these chips. Their technology is in such high demand. And, Jack, you've written about this
Mhm.
for Forbes. uh, the culture at Nvidia is really intense. It is not necessarily a
Yeah.
rest and vest kind of place.
What surprises me a little bit is this: Jensen, who is the founder and CEO, comes across as this, like, he has that nice silvery hair and he has a leather jacket, but not trying to be too cool, but just trying to be a little hip, right? And he comes across, whatever I've seen him speak, very nice, fatherly kind of person, right? Very. But then you peel back some layers, and he's like, "I love we torture our employees to, get the best out of them." You know, the working till 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So there's this weird juxtaposition where, to me, I look at this guy and he looks, "Oh, what a nice guy. He seems like it would be a great uncle, to, be with or what have you, you know?" But evidently, he runs a strict regimen to get these people working all hours of the day, and the results speak for themselves, right? So it seems to be working. Um,
I mean, that's clear cause and effect, right?
I don't, is it because of that, or is it just, what, they had the right chips at the right moment at the right time, and it all clicked in?
I mean,
Or is it that they're that much smarter, or are they just that much lucky, or a little bit of everything?
I imagine it has to be everything, right?
Mhm,
Because you had to be at the right place at the right
mhm,
time. Sure, there's definitely a bit of that, but like Nvidia is not a
mhm,
company that's been around for, the last 2 3 years. They've been around for much longer, and so there's all of this like infrastructure, all of this research, all of this hard work, all of this hardcore mode, this intense
mhm.
1 2 4 a.m. That Jensen requires from his team, that had to like build up to this moment. And so I imagine it is really intense over there, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe there's this feeling of, I mean, Jack, to your point, there's a little bit of greed in everyone, right? Like, hey, we're now have net worth of 10 million, twenty
Mhm.
million dollars or more. Can we get it higher? I'm sure there's
Yeah.
a lot of folks out there that are thinking, hey, it's great that Jensen's a billionaire, but what about me?
This reminds me of when we were just mentioning it, where in music or in other areas such as that, you say, "Oh, this person was an overnight success," but it really took 10 years, just like you were planning out, with Jensen, how it worked. So yeah, you were overnight success, but it took you 20 years to get there. So if you look at like the stock chart, you would see it just like kind of flatlining, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, right up. And it's wild. And just if I could take a little tangent, because I invest a lot for myself. And when Rick, you mentioned about, Meta, and I bought shares, I know exactly what you're talking about. There was a time period where they were all in on the metaverse, and all the investors freaked out, like, "What are you doing? You're just wasting all this money." And the PE ratio was like a normal like PE ratio. And a PE ratio, for people who are not aware, is a price to earnings ratio, where you could kind of, say, "Hey, this stock is reasonably priced or overpriced or underpriced." And it was reasonably priced. And usually Meta and other fangs are not reasonably priced. They're like, there's a huge PE because you're buying the growth. So people who bought it at that price, as Rick pointed out, did really well. But what happens for people, this is just a little, side note on investing, because we have this investing stock sector on Blind. So definitely take a look at it. So what happens is this, it's the psychology that's really effed up, because when things are bad, when, the metaverse and all the, investors were saying, "Hey, this is terrible, stop with it," that's when people sell their stock and they run away from it. And it's just the wrong thing to do, because they panic, they freak out. They're like, "Oh no, this is terrible." And then the stock shoots up later on. And then when it shoots up later on, that's when most people then buy it, because now it shot up because everyone's
Of
talking about it.
course.
So you buy it at the high. And it's the craziest thing, because when it's really low and you can get it as a discount, you don't buy it. But
Yeah.
when it's high and everyone else is buying, you buy it. So if you're watching this, and maybe we could write some stuff, Rick, and put it on the blog part of stocks and investments. It's this kind of psychology of investing, is that you can't follow the herd, because you follow the herd, it becomes like just following meme stocks, like, GameStop and whatever. You gotta just, you got to have the strong stomach to make that decision and not chase after every high flyer because everyone else is doing it, and think for yourself. So that's just a tangent, a little shout out to the investment stock side of, because you guys might not know that Blind had that. And it's really interesting, at least for me, to find out about this stuff. But back to Nvidia, like, it's really wild from just a humanistic standpoint, where now you're in the office, these people, you're walking around, like, is everybody just high-fiving each other? Is everybody just like walking around with their chest out? Hey, hey, hey. Like, is everyone, is the parking lot full of Lamborghinis? Like, what's really, what do you think? What's go if do you have any plants there? You know anybody there that like can tell you really what's happening on the inside, Rick?
I do.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you mentioned the psychology of stock trading, because
Mhm.
it also has to do with the psychology of the everyday worker there at
Mhm.
Nvidia or these tech companies, right? Where these offers, the stock-based compensation is designed in a way to lock you in. They want to build these so-called golden handcuffs, because if you notice, you don't get these shares in your offer letter all at once, right? They get unlocked, they vest over time. And so we've seen some companies like Google where they've been pretty extreme in having a low vesting period, right? Where their vesting period is at the end of 1 year. And so, if you work 364 days at Google, you don't get a single share of stock, even though it's promised to you in your offer letter. You really do have to hit that 1 year cliff,
Mhm.
that 1 year moment to get that full unlock. Now, imagine at NVIDIA, where they kind of follow the standard tech model where it's over 4 years and you don't get anything until you get your first year. So, employees, they might be kind of getting burnt out, right? They're working these crazy long hours. It might be a pressure cooker at work, and they're just hoping, God, like, on paper, I'm supposed to be a millionaire, but I need to get to my first year. Or alternatively, maybe you're after your first year, maybe you're a veteran. Nvidia is a 31-year-old company.
Mhm.
Maybe you're on several cycles of these stock grants, and you're thinking, gosh, could Nvidia go higher? Right? Like, when my next quarter, when my next year's stock grant gets released, will it be higher? Like, I'll be really stupid if I leave right now and it goes even higher. And so there's almost this lock-in effect that's built into how these offers, how this stock-based compensation is structured, that maybe you're getting kept into a really bad working situation, this poor work-life balance, because you want that stock and that FOMO is kicking in.
It's gotta be rough. So let's say you or I, right? We're there. We have the stock locked up. So we know is there, but then you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, for instance, yesterday rather, the stock price of Nvidia went down 10%. And I think before we went on the show, maybe he's down 3% or so. So now you're sitting there biting your nails, worried, right? Think
Yeah.
about it, right? You're worried for, just a few days ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, you're like, yeah, we're great. And now you got to be like, oh my God, do I have to worry about this? Because nothing is worse than losing money. So, like, when you're seeing your stock appreciate in value, you're like, yeah, this is great. But it's the high is good, and this is a weird thing about investing. But then when it goes down, it's doubly worse. It's like
Oh,
way worse than the feeling going up. So now I can imagine, as you're pointing out, because I really, even though I was writing about it, like just the way you articulated, I can imagine you and I sitting in the office there, right? And we're thinking, oh my God, it's locked up. What's going to happen? Could something go wrong? Is there going to be a, World War III, and all of a sudden the stock's going to go to nothing? Is there going to be a blow up in the Middle East? Because, like, I would have those ruminations thinking about, so what you thought was something golden, now you're worried and you still have to do your job. But also, I wonder, Rick, do you have these other people who aren't, worried about it. They're like, just, hey, everything's gonna turn okay. But they still have to work because if they goof off or they're not performing, you got to worry. All right, maybe they say, hey, Jack, Rick, you guys are just, we're going to put you on a PIP, on a performance improvement plan.
Right.
And you're like, oh no, oh no. What's good? I just blew up my chances of being very wealthy. So I guess it looks good from the outside, and for a lot of people will be, but it's not perfect, right? Lots of pressure, lots of stress. You really may not have that stock right away. It's going to be probably a lot of up and downs till you find you have it. And then I don't want to be that guy, but let's say something really does happen. Like, did you saw the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is conducting an investigation into Nvidia and others. What's that going to mean to the stock? So all of a sudden,
Right.
are you as rich as you were, or now you're not rich, or now you're like, oh no. So, like, what do you make of it? What do you think the net outcome is this going to be? Do you have any clairvoyance of like how how this is going to play out?
No, I wish I had this
Yeah.
clairvoyance, because then I wouldn't be touting with you, right? I'd be
Mhm.
in retirement mode. And
Right.
I mean, to in that vein, I imagine that is the exact feeling at Nvidia for all these
Mm.
professionals, right? Where they're maybe in semi-retirement mode, we could call it, where they don't have enough wealth that they can just retire and not care if they get fired. Um, but they're also still in it because they want to unlock that next tranche of
Yeah.
stock and hope that it gets higher. There's almost this like sunk cost fallacy built in, right? Where it's just thinking like, gosh, like I am being worked to the bone, but I need to stick it through because I want that stock. I've been promised the stock. That's a big part of my offer letter, my total
Right.
compensation package. And it just, again, we always hear this term golden handcuffs. They really do tie you in. Maybe these are folks that would have left to start other startups, or gone to better places for their mental health. We never know. And I think that is kind of the hidden story behind these news headlines, behind that stock ticker that you see on the bottom of your
Mhm.
screen, on that cryon when you're watching the news, that I think people often forget that there is this kind of intense pressure to have to stick it through. And maybe, gosh, like for some people, it's better that they just leave.
I'm so glad you pointed this out because you're right. When you look at the media, they're always like the hype. Oh, look, oh, all these going to be, millionaires, multi,
Yeah.
but they don't take the time and energy to kind of look back, look into it. It's like, all right, what is going on actually with the people? As Rick, you're pointing out, that it's yes, we don't want to feel like because the average person, they'd be like, what? 10 million, 5 million, 20 million.
Right.
What are you complaining about? But it is that stress level of like, can I keep it up? Is the stock price going to be up? Is it going to crash? Is it not going to crash? Is it going to be another AI chip that's better than Nvidia? Um, so it's not perfect, right? And you just have to grind away and grind away because you don't want to be that guy who says, you know what, I'm bailing out, I have enough money, and then Nvidia keeps going higher, and you're like, oh my God, what did I just do? I just messed it up.
Or alternatively, you don't want to slack off
Mhm.
and get fired before your next unlock of stock, where it's like, oh god damn it, like all those months or all those years that I spent was actually for nothing, right?
It's like a
I didn't get
treadmill.
this,
It's
I didn't
like a
get as much
gerbil,
stock as I was supposed to
right?
get. Yeah.
It's like you're just constant. So it's like you're constantly on that treadmill, like you can't get off. And instead of having like a carrot, you have like a dangling bunch of money, in front of you
Right.
to keep going. And you don't want to be that idiot to say, I'm getting off. But then again, after a while, like even if you hit the number you want, you know, like I don't know if you have this on blind, fire, but they'll use, the fire, on
Right.
Reddit, like how much money do you need to just say, I'm done, I'm out. And some people may want to get off, but then you're like, let me just keep going. Let me just keep going.
Right. Or you just, I mean, you just don't want to slack off and get a pip and get fired before your 1 year cliff. Right. And you're just like, well, I spent like 11 months or whatever, and it's all for naught because I didn't get my stock that I was supposed to get.
It,
So I think it just goes back to kind of the psychology of why is this company offering? Why do these companies structure their offer letters, their compensation in a certain way? Right? Like it is not a bug, right? These vesting periods, um, whether it's 1 year, 4 year, this the cliff that you have to wait, it's all designed to create this lock-in effect for their workers, right? They don't want their workers to leave for another com- competitor or another company. They're trying to reduce attrition, and obviously, compensation is a big part of that. And that's actually why stock-based compensation is popular in a way that it's probably not as popular in Wall Street, for
mhm,
example, right? Because the incentives are different, right? Wall Street, it's more of a maybe it's more of a sales role. And so they want to go heavy on the bonus
mhm.
because they want to incentivize their people to sell and to do it faster and quicker, right? And so I think it's a good reminder for professionals out there when they're interviewing, they're getting these job offers, they're seeing stock-based compensation, they're seeing cash-based bonuses for the first time. This is what it really means.
So do you know by any chance, did were there like psychologists that set this up that about this whole hamster on the wheel effect, we'll call it? Or did it just organically grow where they realized, hey, if we just keep dangling things in front of them, they're going to just keep working and working and working.
Yeah, I imagine it is really just about aligning incentives, right?
Mhm,
Where it's a company wants their workers to stay at their company for the longest time, right? Like rehiring someone, filling that butt in the seat after someone leaves, that's expensive. That costs them time and money. There's obviously that opportunity cost in terms of like lost domain experience and knowledge. But it's also, stock is part ownership of the company, right? So you hear this kind of mantra mentioned so much in tech, it's almost become a stereotype, the saying that everyone is an owner, right? They want people to think of themselves as an owner in the company to do things that would benefit everyone, right? And so that might be working harder, staying longer,
mhm.
um, you know, going for that next, product launch or that next big sale. And so they're really like kind of trying to create this certain behavior or these certain sets of actions, and they're going to incentivize accordingly.
It almost seems like I'm not being overly dramatic. It almost seems like Stockholm syndrome, where, all right, you and I are working in Nvidia and we're making money and we're excited about it, but now we have a taste of it. We want to make more money, so we're going to work harder. And then if they tell you to work more hours, yep, we're going to work more hours because we're going to get more stock and we're going to want more hours. And we don't leave and we're staying in the place. And they have food put out for us, so we don't even have to leave the office. They cater the food, they do everything. So you don't even have, you're just there and working and working and working. And then after a while, like that becomes your life and you just keep going.
Yes, can you imagine if you're on the other side, right? If you are at a company that's not doing well and you're thinking, oh man, like what if I stay longer and work harder? Then all our shares could increase, and then we could, get back more comp for everyone. Or alternatively, it's like, oh gosh, what if I leave right when it's in its little trough, but it bounces back right after I leave? Then I kind of lock in my quote unquote loss. I mean, that is all part of that psychology, right? In terms of what's going to keep people there or not. So it's it's a hard calculus that I think folks need to realize. Um, you really need to do an inventory in terms of what matters most for you. And sometimes it's not necessarily going to be chasing that stock based comp or that total comp. And sometimes you have to say, hey, actually, I'm not growing in this role, or actually, this work culture is just killing me. And it's better for me to leave to save that sanity, even if I'm going to quote unquote leave some dollars on the table.
So it's it's such a crazy story, isn't it?
It is indeed. So I think for those of you that are listening and thinking, gosh, I want to work at Nvidia, or I want to see what it's like, or how many more people are millionaires, a good way to kind of get into that headspace is to go on blind and actually see these thousands of Nvidia professionals talk about what it's like to work there.